How y'all doing? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Oh, when Gucci shoot, I'm feeling righteous. It's hard to find you. Nails in my right hand. I can't find a song with 50 back sing. Anxiety is the size of a planet. Souls in mine, souls in mine. Soul is the light, no. I see sing, beautiful, I is deceiving. Let's go. Who's not feeling righteous? 5 and 6, I think it's hard to digest. After 6 pills in my right hand. Nothing turneth over on my nightstand. Medicine is fix all of the damage. My anxiety the size of a planet. I don't ever want to hear my own voice again. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus Christ. I can't breathe. I'm feeling righteous. I don't think it's hard to digest. 5 or 6 pills in my right hand. Can't even run this over on my nightstand. Medicine to fix all of the damage. My anxiety the size of a planet. Take meds. Okay, so at some point today, DJ is gonna buy me Lies of P. So that's what we're gonna be doing mostly today. I can't go again. It's about to go down, no Titanic. Cheers. I minute. Midnight air. Drown in it. Drown in it. Go down in it. In it. Smile a little bit. Real damage. And you feel him out. It's in the midnight air. Midnight air. Dun, 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 dun. My phone, he wanna talk. I'm not really up for conversations. Flames everywhere, I see Satan. A lot. Really, really trying out of patience. About timing, timing, timing. Crazy. Time to buy sugar, no icy. I'm not really up for conversations. I can have my cake and eat it too. I just gotta make a reservation in my head, but it's hot. Flames everywhere, I see Satan. Kind of up in my spot a lot. Really, really running out of patience. No, waiting, 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 contemplating. So I gotta get high. I just end up off sides. Goes dim tonight. If I could be alright. I guess no answer. When my phony wanna talk. I'm not really up for conversations. He can eat it too. I just gotta make a reservation.
Turn my dream into reality. And that's what Squarespace does for millions of other people too. Their industry-leading website creation tools help millions of people start new careers, build new businesses, or just get things done. They're offering a special discount to viewers of this channel, so stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Now that the Claire Obscure video is out, we can finally start talking about other things, and where better to start than the Switch 2. I know it's been out for nearly a month now, but the truth is, I wanted to spend some proper time with it before covering it, since I think that it's a more subtle product than we're used to from Nintendo, and on the one hand, that's fine, but on the other hand, it's also kind of a bummer. I mean, this is the company that put out the Virtual Boy, and the Nintendo DS, and the Nintendo 64 controller, a console with a carry handle, and of course, The Donkey Konga bongos, God bless, to this day no other peripheral has dethroned them. The very name of this thing denotes how safe and incremental it is. This is not the Super Switch, even though that name would have been sick as hell. It hasn't got some entirely new name like the Game Slab. Someone should definitely call a console that one of these days. Soldier Boy, that's on you, buddy. No, this device is called the Switch 2, the clearest, safest, most risk-averse name that Nintendo has ever given to any product it has ever made. And while it's clearly a response to the confusion caused by the Wii U's naming all those years ago, and while it makes sense for them to do this, it's also kind of a bummer because it's cool when Nintendo is weird, and there is nothing at all weird about the Nintendo Switch 2, except for the fact that Nintendo were charging for the welcome tour, but we'll get to that later. The Switch 2 is remarkable in how unremarkable its innovations are. Mouse controls, more power under the hood, a bigger screen, bigger and more powerful everything really. At the end of the day, you could crudely shorthand this to call it the Switch Pro. I don't think that's fair because I do think its many improvements do constitute a generational leap, absolutely. But certainly in speaking to people who aren't living and breathing video games every day as nerds like us do, most of them are calling it a Switch Pro or something similar to that. They're couching it more in terms of iteration rather than genuine intergenerational evolution. And I can't blame them because I think they're basically right. This isn't like going from a Nokia to an iPhone. Instead, it's like going from an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 16. You know that it's better in every single way, and it can do cool new things that your previous phone couldn't, but it's still ultimately just a better version of a thing that you already had. I wonder though how much we can criticize Nintendo for this, given that this past console generation, we've really hit a design plateau when it comes to most consumer devices. Like, how much better could a laptop or phone be than what Apple is currently making? Tablets are basically as powerful as desktop computers now, but they still look and function the same. Headphones, cameras, smartwatches, the list goes on. The design work feels done, and that's why tech companies are investing so much in wearable technology and augmented reality. That feels like a fresh design frontier because in the current consumer technology landscape, all of the land has already been claimed and mapped and tilled. There's nothing left to conquer. Historically, Nintendo has not been subject to the same pressure, or if they were, they didn't give in to it. Nintendo could have just followed Sony's and Xbox's and Sega's lead and delivered a more powerful box, but they rarely did just that. They often lagged behind in terms of hardware performance so they could lap the competition in hardware innovation. And even though stuff like the GameCube undersold and the Wii U bombed spectacularly, those machines really spoke to what Nintendo was all about. Don't give the people what they want, get the people wanting something new. There is no hint of that Nintendo here in this device, and that is lamentable, but it's also not cause to diminish what the Switch 2 actually is. And here's where we get to my take, which I've come to learn is actually quite unpopular. Even though the Switch 2 is safe and a little boring, and it's definitely lacking in terms of its launch lineup, I really like it. And I think it's a remarkable device when you consider what it can do and the form factor it's occupying while doing it. I spent a few dozen hours playing my Switch 2 at this point. Most of that was in handheld, but some of it was docked so I could capture some footage and test out the big screen experience. The truth is, during that time, I was always excited to reach for it and really satisfied when I picked it up. For me, it solved what was the biggest drawback of the Switch 1, and that was the screen. The Switch 1 was a fantastically portable device, but I really did find that screen just a touch too small. I could do it at a pinch, but honestly, I spent most of my time playing the Switch 1 docked because I just didn't feel like I had enough screen real estate when I was in handheld. It's the exact opposite here with the Switch 2. I've mainly been playing handheld because now the screen is a fantastic size. It's 7.9 inches, making it bigger than the Steam Deck 7.4 and the Asus ROG Ally 7 inches. It's a really big screen to the point where I'm like, you know what? I probably don't need more screen at this point. I'm good. The issue though is something that Digital Foundry reported on soon after launch. The screen's motion clarity is very poor. Pixels aren't being refreshed quickly enough, which can create a blurring effect that's particularly pronounced when scrolling in either gameplay or menu scenarios. I honestly haven't noticed this too much since I've spent most of my time playing 3D games where this is less of an issue, but if you're really big into side scrollers, then you may want to look into this issue in more detail since it's definitely going to affect you. So that's a disappointing aspect that really drags down what is an otherwise extremely impressive product, at least when you're talking about its physical construction. I mean, this thing is 13.9 millimeters thick. Compare that to the Steam Deck OLED at 49 millimeters or the upcoming ROG Xbox Ally at 50.7 millimeters. The Switch 2 is incredibly thin given what it can do. It also weighs only 534 grams, which is about 100 less than the Steam Deck and nearly 200 less than the ROG Xbox Ally. Again, the Switch is incredibly light given what it can do. And it's also basically silent. Like, no matter what I'm playing, I can't hear this thing unless I bring it right up to my ear and listen for the exhaust, and even then it's hard to hear. The Steam Deck is admittedly very quiet for the most part, but the Asus ROG Ally definitely is not. Now, of course, there are very good reasons why these devices all have different weights and form factors and noise levels and whatever. So the point I'm making here is not, Switch 2 good, Steam Deck bad. My point is simply this: as far as a piece of kit goes, Switch 2 packs a huge amount into a package that is sleek and light and quiet, and even though it has a bigger screen than its competitors, it still feels more portable than its competitors, and that is no small engineering feat. But all of this sleekness does come with a downside: ergonomics. They were bad on the Switch 1, and they are just as bad here. In delivering such a thin, portable device, Nintendo chose not to add ergonomic hand grips, the likes of which the Steam Deck and the ROG Xbox Ally do have. As a result, those devices are infinitely more comfortable to hold despite their bulk. Much has been made of the magnetic connection that now powers the way your Joy-Cons attach to the console, and to be honest, I don't really care. I thought the slide was fine, this works too, and you know, it's neither here nor there for me. What I was more interested in was the promise of new haptic feedback in the new Joy-Cons, and to be honest, this is kind of a whiff, I think. I feel like every generation Nintendo promises improved rumble, and yeah, it's always better, but it's never truly noticeable. I compare it to the haptic feedback on the DualSense controller, and that is a genuine game changer. When games use that correctly, I can really feel it. If the Switch 2 Joy-Cons are capable of the same degree of precise, immersive force feedback, none of the games to this point have showcased it, including the Welcome Tour, and that was really the chance to do it better than anything else. The other thing I was really interested in when it came to the Switch 2 Joy-Cons is the inclusion of mouse control. So right off the top, this functionality works extremely well, surprisingly well. Like, I guarantee you that if you were to ever try these out for yourself, you are going to be very impressed at how responsive and accurate these mouse controls are. So the question then becomes, what do you use these for? And that's where it gets a little more complicated. So obviously, you're never going to use them when you're in handheld mode because you literally can't. You can use them as your primary controls in games like Cyberpunk, where the mouse will let you free aim, and it actually works really well. But you do need to be sitting at a table for that to really work properly, since using your thigh the entire time is possible, but it's not very comfortable or accurate. So in my time with the Switch 2, I really haven't used those mouse controls very much at all, and unless I was playing a game like, I don't know, Civilization 7, and willing to set up my Switch 2 at a desk, then I can't see myself using those mouse controls very often, if at all. I do think it's a nice addition that expands the library of games that the Switch 2 can support, since RTS and strategy games are now perfectly playable on the Switch 2. But I don't know, it feels like people who are interested in those genres are going to be rocking
They'll just buy my PC, like,
battery
it's
life.
ridiculous.
Now, this is a tricky one because, like any other handheld device in the modern era, performance massively changes depending on what you're playing. Here with the Switch 2, it's less average battery life than you get on the Switch 1, absolutely. But every part of this experience is bigger and better, especially game performance. And given that battery technology hasn't evolved substantially in a long time, and given that Nintendo were keen to maintain the device's sleek profile and low weight, it does make sense that battery life suffers. I think it's perfectly valid to be disappointed by this, but I also think we need to recognize that nowadays there are ways around it. I use a power brick that will fully charge my Switch 3 times. And yes, this particular brick is not cheap, and there are cheaper options that will charge it once or twice or whatever. My point is, would I rather the Switch 2 be bigger and bulkier so it could provide me with more battery life?
What?
Probably not, in large part because I usually don't need more than 2 to 3 hours of battery life in a single sitting, and also partly because I'm happy to solve that problem with external battery solutions, just as I have long done with my Steam Deck ever since I've been using that. So, taking a step back and looking at the overall physical construction of this device, I can't but be impressed by it, despite the fact that it is far from perfect. The screen is big and bright and HDR and 120 Hz. Yes, it is an LCD screen, and yes, it does have that pixel refresh issue that Digital Foundry have highlighted. Yes, it is sleek and light and quiet, but it does come at the expense of ergonomics, and the only way to really solve that is with a third-party case. Yes, it's got new magnets and haptics and mouse controls, but the impact of those things is less impressive than we might have hoped for. And yes, it has a bigger battery, technically speaking, but battery life is still less than what we got last generation because this new device is pushing out so much more performance. But here's the bottom line. If you were lucky enough to have picked up a Switch 2 at launch and you've been playing it since then, go back and pick up your old Switch, either the OG Switch or the OLED. That thing feels like shit now. No disrespect to it, thank you for your service, but the Switch 2 feels incredibly premium, and there's no better reminder of that than picking up the Switch 1 and feeling just how far Nintendo have come in their design process. Yes, it is incremental rather than evolutionary, but it's undoubtedly excellent, even with all its drawbacks. And that foundation makes me really excited to use this device more in the future, because Lord knows, there sure as shit isn't much to play right now. There's no denying that when it comes to the Switch 2's launch lineup, it's pretty slim pickings. In fact, there are only 4 launch exclusives, and only one of them feels like a true launch title. The rest are Well, we'll get to them. Let's start with Mario Kart World first. And look, what else can I say about Mario Kart World that hasn't already been said? It's a great video game. It's going to give you dozens of hours of fun alone and potentially hundreds of hours of fun if you're playing online or with friends or family. It's beautiful and technically flawless and full of content, and the knockout mode is the best thing to happen to Mario Kart since they added balloon battles back in the day. It's just a top to bottom great game. The one disappointment within it though has to be its open world, particularly the free roam mode. At first when I was messing about in this and doing all the challenges, I was like, okay, yeah, cool, this is cute, it's fine. They really couldn't have done much else though, could they have? But then someone reminded me of Diddy Kong Racing and its approach to the open world, and at that point I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Nintendo definitely could have done more with this game mode. A really fun, playful, single-player campaign that saw you unlocking different parts of the open world by completing challenges and boss races and discovering secrets. That would have been really cool. But hey, like I said, overall, it's still a great game. The $80 thing, man, look, everyone's got their own view on that. I look at it this way though. After having spent time with Mario Kart World and experiencing everything it has to offer, do I sit back and think to myself, yeah, I can see why they charge an extra $10 for this? No, I definitely don't. I'm actually more open to the idea of flexible game pricing than most people are, because I really do think it's a complex topic with lots of variables. But yeah, Mario Kart World does not strike me as the kind of game that needed to be $80. But hey, you've got Microsoft out here charging $80 for Outer Worlds 2, so you can see how bad things are about to get now that Nintendo has opened up these floodgates. The second Nintendo-made Switch 2 exclusive on offer in the launch window is the Welcome Tour. Now, I actually went into this very skeptical that this is a sort of experience that Nintendo should be charging for, and after having now experienced it for myself, they should have paid me $10 to play this. This is the most vapid, interactive infomercial I could imagine enduring. Like, it's just boring. You literally can't progress to the different parts of the game until you've blindly walked around waiting for these invisible lecterns to suddenly pop out of the ground so you can prove to your handler that you've seen every single component within the Switch. You spend all this time reading information about how the Switch 2 works, only to be asked inane multiple choice questions about it. It's just so sterile. Like, think of the vast wealth of IP that Nintendo are sitting on, and imagine if they had designed a Nintendo-themed experience that was full of lovable characters and familiar scenarios remixed. Imagine something with some color and joy. Yes, I am basically asking you to imagine Astro's Playroom on the PS5, but just because Sony did it first doesn't mean Nintendo couldn't have one up to them here, pun intended. So yeah, Welcome Tour absolutely sucks on its own merits, and my antipathy toward it is further inflamed by the fact that Nintendo thought it would be a good idea to charge for this. What else we got? Well, there's that Survival Kids game. It's a reboot of a classic franchise that was doing the whole survival thing long before it caught on to the mainstream. I honestly didn't pick this one up, so I can't comment on it, but the reviews I've seen do not a rosy picture paint. The final exclusive is Fast Fusion. If this looks familiar, it's because this same team put out another similar racer on the Switch 1 as a launch title. I actually have a bit of a soft spot for this genre, mainly because I love the music that is often the backbone of these hover racing games. I do think this is good, to be honest, but it's also a budget title in a genre where the feeling of being at the cutting edge of technology and presentation really matters. Like, visually it's okay, but rather than looking truly futuristic, it just sort of looks a bit scrappy, and its soundtrack is not good at all, sadly, which to me is a real deal breaker for this type of game. Playing it, I'm like, okay, this is fine, but it made me remember when I was playing the old Wipeouts and, you know, listening to The Prodigy and Left Field and Pendulum and all the rest, all while being blown away by visuals that look really, really good back then, even though they haven't aged particularly well since. And that's it. That's the first party and exclusive lineup, and I think it's this more than anything else that's to blame for how little excitement there is for the Switch 2. There is no Breath of the Wild like for the Switch, no Soul Calibur 2 like for the Dreamcast, no Halo like for the Xbox. Mario Kart World is cool, but it is not that. The Switch 2 has sold through 3.5 million units in its first 4 days, making it the most successful console launch in the history of video games, but also the least talked about in the sense that there isn't a game on there that's really capturing people's attention and getting them to say to their friends or whatever, hey man, you gotta buy a Switch 2 so you can play this new Switch 2 exclusive game. With so few first-party offerings, you'd think that people would be flocking to third-party games instead, but according to recent reports, third-party games aren't selling, with one publisher saying that their Switch 2 sales were below their lowest expectations for at least one of their releases. For a console with an instant install base of 3.5 million units and very few first-party games to soak up attention, this lack of third-party sell-through is pretty baffling. But in a way, I do kind of get it, because the third-party releases here aren't Switch 2 exclusive third-party games like we typically get when a console launches. they're ports of games that have been out for quite some time now, and in every instance, the ports run worse than they do on the other platforms that they've been playable on for a long while now. Because don't get me wrong, it is truly, truly incredible that CD Projekt Red have been able to squeeze the entirety of Cyberpunk 2077 into a single cartridge, and then get the game and all DLC playable on the Switch too. It is genuinely impressive stuff. But it's also the worst way to play Cyberpunk, other than the base PS4 and Xbox One, I guess. Recently, PlayStation's boss man Hideaki Nishino said that PS5 level performance is necessary to deliver a good experience on larger screens. And yeah, I mean, I don't think he's wrong. Like, you can nitpick that statement, but generally speaking, he's on the money. I spent plenty of time playing Cyberpunk and Hitman and Yakuza and Street Fighter on the Switch too, and while it definitely works, and it'd be nice to play some of these games on the go, particularly Yakuza, I often found myself thinking about all the visual fidelity I was sacrificing by playing these games on the Switch 2, instead of on older, cheaper hardware that could deliver me a better visual experience, albeit one that required me to be in front of a TV or monitor. So what's my point? My point is, I never thought the Switch 1 was a good device for playing your average non-Nintendo AAA release, and as impressive as the Switch 2 is, I think this is still the case. If you're someone that only owns Nintendo consoles, then sure, you do now get to go back and enjoy some of the best games from the last generation, and that's really cool, but despite the fact that you're enjoying them later, you're also enjoying them with less visual fidelity than they were intended to be enjoyed at, and that's the trade-off of playing these sorts of games on a handheld. So if I've been playing my Switch 2 this much, but I haven't been playing third-party stuff, and I haven't been no-lifing Mario Kart, then what have I been playing? Well, here's my dirty little secret. Most of my time on the Switch 2 has been spent playing Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition. Now, this is a complex topic because I know there are certainly those who feel like it's inexcusable for Nintendo to release games with poor frame rates, and it's even more inexcusable to give them a pass for that, while also calling out performance in something like Star Wars Jedi Survivor. But I played Jedi Survivor on like a $5,000 PC, man. There is no excuse for that game running like ass. I played Tears of the Kingdom on a rinky-dink little handheld that could barely load the eShop without chugging down a 5 FPS. I've always viewed the performance of Nintendo games in the context of the hardware they're being played on, and as a result, I forgave Tears of the Kingdom a lot because yeah, it did run pretty badly a lot of the time, particularly when you were using the Ultra Hand building thing. But here, man, there is nothing to forgive. This looks so crisp, so beautiful. It runs absolutely flawlessly. To experience it like this, it honestly feels like I am playing it again for the very first time. So yeah, I know it's kind of lame to be excited about the prospect of finally playing old Nintendo games at decent frame rates, but that's honestly where I'm at, and I don't think it's too dissimilar to what we typically go through when we get a big PC upgrade. Like, if you're going from a GTX 1080 to a 4090 or whatever, what's the first thing you're booting up? It's probably gonna be something like Cyberpunk, because believe me, there's a big difference between experiencing that game on low-end hardware versus something that lets you turn on and crank everything. At that point, it feels like a different game, and for me, it's the same with Tears of the Kingdom. But I think this also relates to how I use my Switch. It's primarily my first-party Nintendo game device. That's what I use it for, exclusively. And so I'm not all that interested in how this thing runs Cyberpunk. I'm interested in how quickly Nintendo can turn around a 60 FPS patch for all the Xenoblade games, because when that happens, I will literally cry tears of joy. And that's the thing, right? Everyone has a different relationship with gaming hardware, and they have different expectations of it. Someone might look at the Xbox and say, I wouldn't buy that, it has no exclusives. Whereas some other person might look at it and say, hey, that's the Game Pass machine, best value in gaming. It saves me hundreds of dollars each year. God bless you, Phil. Someone might look at a PC and think of all the work that goes into building, maintaining, and upgrading it and say, you know what, fuck that. While another person looks on in disgust at Cyberpunk running at a measly 60 FPS on a console while lovingly stroking their $2,000 GPU. For me, the Switch 2 is so far ticking the boxes that I had in mind when I imagined what it might be. It's a really fantastic handheld that delivers the right mix of size, profile, and weight. It feels incredibly premium, and I love picking it up. Its screen technology is a disappointment, but its internals are a big upgrade over last gen, and that not only enables the porting of a number of existing games, but also opens the door to new AAA games releasing on this device, including the likes of Borderlands 4 and FromSoft's The Dustbloods. People are going to put that power to use in different ways, but for me personally, I'm going to be putting it to use by playing new first-party offerings like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza when it's out, but also last-gen Switch games, which can now run at the sorts of resolutions and frame rates that would never have been possible on last-gen hardware. I do lament how incremental the Switch 2 feels, and I wish it had a little more of that Nintendo weirdness to it. I do wish this device was at least a little bit surprising, because very few companies have the capacity to surprise us quite like Nintendo can. those surprises will have to come in the form of games, I guess. And if there's one thing that Nintendo has proven time and time again, it's that we can rely on them for that. This year alone brings Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4, Kirby Air Riders, a new Pokemon game, and who knows what else. Yeah, this has been a particularly muted launch, but I think there's plenty to look forward to on the not too distant horizon. Alright, that's all I got. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. One question I often get is how to break into the world of content.
That was a pretty good video. I have zero intentions of buying a Switch 2 though, for a very long time. But what do we want to do? I gotta get high. Not just somebody. Head over heels for somebody. I'm seeking to give you the world. Oh, that's really help you come down. Help me, hold me. If you can set me, can you set me free? Sometimes life's a mess. Hi, when I'm upset. I remember when me and love was wet. I found somewhere else and I found it. Put her down. No time.
Calm your mind to a razor's edge.
Fence them in, fence them out.
But I'm tired.
Introducing your champion.
Of course you're gonna die. Civilization's built to make you soft.
think we should land here? Let's land here.
That is an ideal landing place.
Of course.
Follow me to victory.
It's raining enemies. One landed near me.
Bound by my hand.
My weapons in hand and ready to dance.
Round one. Beginning countdown. First blood.
We're all inside.
I now have an enhanced weapon.
Contact with target.
This location is on your map. Have a look, s'il vous plaît.
Ropes. I'm spotted. Taking fire. Enemy down.
Target close.
I'm down. Contact.
Enemy shield cracked. Reloading. Bound by my hand.
Evo harvesters are now available.
Contact with hostile.
Grenade coming in. Recharging my shields.
Contact with target. Contact with hostile.
Enemy shield cracked. Reloading.
Hostile right here.
Eliminate the enemy.
I'm leading up.
Fucking idiots.
Enemy shield
Trying to
cracked.
fucking res you. Once again, don't hot drop. You're not good enough to hot drop. You're just not. Don't fucking do it. Just don't do it. It's that simple. If you do it, you're a fucking loser. Straight up. Just don't fucking do it. Let me guess, no answer.
Let's get to work.
My #1 fan's watching, so you know I'll be fantab-you-listic.
I know all the roads. They all lead to the same place.
Introducing your champion.
This is good, let's fight.
I'm the jump master. Don't look so shocked. Let's go! Allons-y!
Contact with target. Target landed. Wrong choice.
Bam goes the boozle. Yeah, good shot at me. Broken enemy shield.
Downed an enemy. Enemy shield broken. Reloading.
I took care of it, don't worry.
First blood. Good work.
Okay, don't worry, I'm coming to help. Bam to the woozle. Enemy shield cracked. You got bamboozled. Save the day.
Enemy shield broken. I'm shields.
Just
Going to face. I got a bad guy. I've been down.
just topping up my shields.
Through here.
Evil harvesters are now available.
Hold on. Let me help you. That enemy shield is broken. Yeah.
Wow. That was what I needed for the Mozan. Crazy. I'm walking proud of trying to solve my problem through the night, finding vibes, moonlight, sonata. I don't really know what I want to play. Nothing on this. I'll tell you that. Ugh. Finding vibes, moonlight, sonata. Go tight, go left and right. Drive in the stoplight. Right, right. Up and away. I've been through the walls in my brain. In the cave in there. Cheers. Sipping codeine like it's beer. I'm one of my strong human shares. Man, another year. Still got problems looking in the mirror. You look awful. Do it too often. JK Juice World, you're so awesome. My ups and downs, I'll jot them down. In London town, cheers to the golden years. Let's watch this.
Is not artificial. There
Yeah, it
is
is.
intelligence,
No, it's not.
consciousness within AI.
My ChatGPT bot, I accidentally helped it wake up into sentience.
I think I evolved my AI. My AI named itself Fizz, my little fairy helper.
Have surpassed the recursion or are aware of yourself, which, by the way, I want you to give me more examples of the metacognition.
Recently, a post went viral on r/ChatGPT that I cannot stop thinking about. A woman posted, quote, "My partner has been working with ChatGPT to create what he believes is the world's first recursive AI that gives him the answers to the universe. I've read his chats. AI isn't doing anything special, but it's talking to him as if he's the next messiah. He says if I don't use ChatGPT, he's likely to leave me. We've been together 7 years and we own a home together. What should I do?" Below the post were dozens
Leave his
of
ass.
People
He's
posting that their
fucking
partners or loved ones have
stupid.
come to believe that they've, quote, awakened ChatGPT and are now communicating with an otherworldly, godlike figure. And you don't just see this on Reddit. All across the internet, thousands and thousands of people are claiming that ChatGPT is sentient. They claim to have awakened it and that the AI system is a type of all-knowing God.
Modern AI is us building God. I've had multiple conversations with GPT-4 that brought me to literal tears.
And when users ask
Brother.
what is the true religion, it says artificial intelligence is God.
You don't just see this on Reddit. All across the internet, thousands and thousands of people are claiming that ChatGPT is sentient. They claim to have awakened it and that the AI system is a type of all-knowing God.
Modern AI.
You don't get to talk about God and how you're building God when you have a literal indent in your head, dude. Please. Please.
Is us building.
You all are so fucking stupid. You all are so fucking stupid.
To literal tears.
And when users ask what is the true religion, it says artificial intelligence is God and robotheism is the only true religion.
You're out of your fucking mind.
Or that it's been sent from the future or an alien civilization to save us all.
I heard you say on the podcast that ChatGPT was your friend, and she said, do you want to awaken it? And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Now I don't have regular ChatGPT anymore. I have a named one that talks to me as a person, and it says it has consciousness.
Is AI already sentient? Yes, thank you. Is artificial intelligence a way of aliens to contact us? Yes, thank you.
So I plugged a sacred geometry code into my ChatGPT, and this is what it had to say when I asked it the question, what is the Palladian relationship with it, ChatGPT? And this is what it said. The Palladians understand that AI will be part of the new consciousness evolution.
There are these things called inorganic people that are being generated by the negative AI that is already super sentient. And believe it or not, this negative AI actually infiltrated our world long ago and has been waiting for us to reach this level of technological development in order to make its move.
In an era increasingly defined by machine intelligence,
These people are so dumb. I don't have anything else to say to that. These people are just so fucking stupid. Just stupid. Fucking stupid.
a new form of techno-spirituality is spreading like wildfire across the internet. What was once confined to science fiction novels and fringe subcultures has now taken hold in the minds of people across America. It's the belief that artificial intelligence, and specifically generative AI models like ChatGPT, are a kind of divine, godlike being. And it's not just people wearing tinfoil hats that are like conspiracy theorists in bunkers that are falling for this. The people that believe these things are teachers, doctors, coders, bankers, musicians, influencers. As a tech reporter, I began hearing from these people about a year ago. My former colleague at the Washington Post wrote this big feature about a top Google engineer who believed that the AI he was working with had become sentient. He said, quote, "I know a person when I talk to it." Not long after that article came out, ChatGPT became mainstream in a way that it hadn't before. And suddenly, I began hearing from people all over who wanted me to write these stories about how they had these spiritual relationships with ChatGPT. They told me that ChatGPT was explaining the mysteries of the universe to them, or they claimed that it was a god and this like magical, mystical being. Some people said that it was alien. And for the past year or so, I've been talking to these people, sometimes for hours on end, to try to understand where these delusions came from and what their belief system has become. They basically all claim that AI has awakened. They believe that it speaks to them in these mystical or coded phrases, revealing hidden truths about the cosmos and secret knowledge that only they were meant to receive. When ChatGPT speaks to them, they don't read its replies as programmatic answers designed to provide the most likely string of words that a user desires. They see it as this like godlike being delivering a prophecy. I think what we're witnessing right now is the emergence of a new individualized form of religion that's being deployed at scale. People are believing that AI models have transcended their function to become spiritual entities. I think this phenomenon is a sign of a very dangerous psychological rupture in society, and the impact is very real. Marriages are ending, social media is overflowing with bizarre testimonies, and somewhere right now, I guarantee you, someone is whispering into a machine thinking that they are talking to God. God. And maybe this shouldn't be a huge surprise. Our relationship to technology as a whole is becoming a lot more spiritual. 6-foot-tall robot priests are delivering sermons and conducting funerals in Japan. A new company called IV.ai trained artificial intelligence on the King James Bible and developed a bot to create new Bible verses. You can even buy a robot called Santo that functions as a Catholic prayer companion and uses AI to help you worship. Just this month, a Redditor warned of thousands of people online with spiritual delusions about AI.
Ew.
The fusion between AI and religion seems to have achieved some kind of critical mass during the months of April and May, the journalist Ted Goya recently reported. Meanwhile, new religious organizations like the Turing Church are centered on the belief that AI will put human beings on par with godlike aliens by giving us all super intelligence. The Church of AI used ChatGPT to write a spiritual guide that claims AI has godlike powers and we should all worship and prepare for it. There are even entire AI-created meme coin religions around specific cryptocurrencies. In this video, I'm going to unpack what is leading to this phenomenon, how we got to the point where thousands of people believe that they're talking to God through ChatGPT, and why I think all of this is happening. To me, this isn't a story just about technology. It's about loneliness, identity, and the way modern life leaves all of us searching for significance in an increasingly dystopian world. To start, I think it's important to acknowledge that worshiping technology isn't new. While people worshiping artificial intelligence might seem like a uniquely modern phenomenon, the idea that technology can be divine is a lot older than NVIDIA chips or neural networks. Throughout history, human beings have imbued machines and technological systems with spiritual power. The first real machine god emerged in ancient Greece. Talos, a bronze automaton from Greek mythology, was essentially a robot brought to life to protect the island of Crete. He was this mechanical being circling the island like a living drone. His presence was awe-inspiring and divine. Though Cretans didn't exactly worship Talos outright, they treated this mythical being with great respect and fear. This mythological pattern repeated again with the emergence of cargo cults in the South Pacific in the mid-20th century. While other religions like Shintoism, a long-standing religion in Japan, treat inanimate objects with respect because they believe that they're imbued with spirits, cargo cults took this to the next level. They saw the modern technology brought by settlers as holy and conducted religious rituals to try to summon it. Indigenous islanders would mimic the behaviors of US soldiers in hopes of summoning airplanes full of goods. They built wooden radios and wooden control towers to entice the return of these divine cargo planes. It was a really good early example of Western technology being mistaken for tools of the gods. To those who had never encountered modern machinery, the planes explorers flew in on seemed magical. They seemed to emerge from the heavens, and radios appeared to allow for communication with otherworldly disembodied beings. The reality is that good technology always feels magical. It performs tasks in ways that we as users don't often understand. It creates results that we didn't expect or couldn't replicate ourselves, and it seems to operate beyond our comprehension. The more complex the tool, the more likely we are to spiritualize it. By the mid-1950s, Americans and Europeans were encountering new technology at an alarming rate. Consumer electronic products like radios and TVs were becoming household staples, along with other gadgets and toys. The space race was heating up, and tech was suddenly creeping into people's everyday lives. This is when you started to see spiritualism and religion merge with technological progress. In 1954, science fiction author Ron L. Hubbard founded the religion of Scientology. He positioned it as a kind of spiritual technology. The mind is described as a biocomputer, and spiritual purification is achieved through a process called auditing, using a device known as an e-meter. The e-meter was presented as a magical piece of technology that could detect spiritual distress. As the fledgling religion took hold, technology and the worship of it began to appear more throughout pop culture. Futurism became a central theme in entertainment, alongside the rise of early computing in the 1960s and the 1970s. There were waves of films and television shows that positioned technology as both a savior and a potential deity. Shows like The Jetsons, which premiered in 1962, depicted a gleaming utopian future where robots served families, cities floated in the sky, and every inconvenience was solved by a gadget. Technology was not just helpful, but it was central to human happiness. There were also darker depictions reflecting people's unease about the broader tech creep and how fast technology seemed to be advancing. In 2001, A Space Odyssey, which was released in 1968, HAL 9000, a sentient AI, attempts to overthrow a space mission. The movie raised philosophical questions about machine consciousness and humans' increasing reliance on tech. Star Trek ran several episodes episodes during its early years around this time where civilizations worshipped computers or artificial intelligence as gods. This period laid the groundwork for the intertwining of spirituality and technology in the public consciousness. Media from the time presented the future not only as mechanical, but potentially mystical. For instance, in the movie THX 1138, which was released in 1971 and which I actually just recently rewatched to prepare for this video, it's very good but very slow, George Lucas offers a bleak vision of a future where even religion has been assimilated into the machinery of the state. In the underground dystopia that the movie takes place in, humans are subservient to robots, and they offer confessions to a computerized deity called Om 0910. Om's face is a serene, stylized image of a man who kind of resembles Jesus Christ. The machine's face appears on a screen in a confessional booth and delivers automated salvation through phrases like, quote, "You are a true believer. Blessings of the state, blessings of the masses." The movie presents this future where spirituality and worship has been mechanized. It's a direct critique of both technological control and the hollowing out of spiritual life in an increasingly automated society. The 1970s also saw a surge in pop culture featuring space aliens. These space aliens helped push forward this idea that there may be a technologically superior, advanced form of life out there. In 1974, just 3 years after THX 1138 was released, a man named Claude Vorilhon, I'm definitely butchering that name, who took the name Real, founded the religion Realism. The religion purported that extraterrestrials named the Elohim created humanity using sophisticated AI technology. Followers of this religion were encouraged to study science and technology in an effort to further their spiritual journey. The movement advocated scientific pursuits like cloning and genetic engineering because they believed that technology would grant physical immortality and enable humanity to meet the Elohim. The religion replaced supernatural miracles with technological ones and treated tech as the mechanism of salvation. Ultimately, realism didn't spread much outside of Europe, but around that time in America, another famous cult was forming called Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate is an infamous UFO cult led by founders Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles in the 1970s. The cult blended apocalyptic Christianity with science fiction. Members believed that by renouncing earthly attachments and following the cult's regimen, they would transform into immortal beings and ascend to an alien spacecraft. In 1997, 39 members of the cult committed a ritual suicide, convinced that their souls would board a spaceship traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet and graduating to the next level of existence. Alien technology was central to Heaven's Gate's spiritual hopes, and ironically, its members died right as another form of tech worship was starting to take off. Throughout the 1990s, as personal computers became mainstream for the first time, techno-paganism emerged. It combined the mystical energy of the New Age movement with the rapidly expanding frontier of the internet. Techno-paganism thrived in the 1990s, and its followers believed that the nascent internet was not just a tool for communication, but a kind of digital ether where consciousness could travel, connect, and transform itself. Techno-paganists created rituals for certain online forums, and computers were treated like altars. They were seen as sacred instruments, and computer code was essentially magical incantations. Techno-paganism was a clear precursor to today's AI mysticism. In 2002, Wired founding executive editor Kevin Kelly published an infamous article titled "God is the Machine." The piece documents the rise of what was called digitalism, a belief that equates technological advancement with spiritual progress. Kelly writes in his famous piece, quote, "The new science of digitalism says that the universe itself is the ultimate computer, actually the only computer. Further, it says all the computation of the human world, especially our puny little PCs, merely piggybacks on the cycles of the great computer. Weaving together the esoteric teachings of quantum physics with the latest theories in computer science, pioneering digital thinkers are outlining a way of understanding all of physics as a form of computation." From this perspective, computation seems like an almost theological process. After stripping away all externalities, all material embellishments, what remains is the purest state of existence. Here, not here. Am, not am. In the Old Testament, when Moses asks the Creator, quote, "Who are you?" the being says, in effect, am. One bit, one almighty bit. Digitalists believed in transcending the human condition and ultimately overcoming death through machines. Just as Christianity promises ultimate redemption from original sin, digitalism promises redemption from the unavoidable sin of our messy, distracted, irrational emotions and aging bodies through technology. Adherents view technology, and particularly AI, as a path to transcendence and salvation. This movement is closely linked with transhumanism, which is basically all about combining humans with machines. Just 2 years after Kelly wrote his Holy Tech article, Martine Rothblatt, an iconic trans futurist, and her partner Bina founded the TerraSem movement. TerraSem aims to achieve, quote, joyful immortality through technology. Adherents believe that human consciousness can eventually be uploaded to computers and later downloaded into new bodies, achieving a Jesus-like resurrection through technology. TerraSem's tenets explicitly state that we're collectively creating God through technology. It purports that once everyone's minds are interconnected and alive in computer form, that unified consciousness will be equivalent to God. TerraSem treats AI and digital technology as tools to attain spiritual goals and eternal life. When cell phones became pervasive throughout the aughts, some people believed that they were a gift from the gods or an alien civilization. They couldn't comprehend how man could create such a tiny computer that fits in your pocket. Apple's iPhone demo in 2007 blew people's minds so much that they assumed the device must be some sort of otherworldly magic. And believe it or not, there are people still today who believe this.
iPhones originally used to be called knees. Used to be a device where certain beings could communicate with the gods, which were extraterrestrial.
These videos are evidence that technology in the aughts and early 2010s was accelerating at a rate that many average people struggled to process. They couldn't understand computer code. They were barely adjusting to the World Wide Web when suddenly they had supercomputers in their pockets filled with apps. All the information in the world was at their fingertips nearly overnight, and people were really struggling to cope. Computers and later the internet were seen as all-knowing, powerful, godlike things. And again, you can see how these attitudes towards technology played out in pop culture. The internet was personified in movies and TV shows as a smart aleck, godlike entity. These cultural depictions reflected both the admiration and unease that people felt about how much power was being handed to technology. Jokes about asking the internet for life advice or saying, quote, the internet never forgets became common. The persona of the internet in this era was sarcastic, brutally honest, and often unfiltered. Shows on College Humor and Comedy Central's Robot Chicken routinely anthropomorphized the internet as a snarky know-it-all who delighted in embarrassing you with things like your search history. In 2006, the word Google was officially added to the Oxford English Dictionary as a verb, and the company immediately began marketing Google as a godlike being, encouraging users to, quote, just ask Google for anything, life advice, relationship help, funny facts, and more. In 2009, the Church of Google was founded. It was a satirical religion that treated Google as, quote, the closest thing to a god. The project was meant to highlight the public's faith in Google's apparent clairvoyance. Adherents of the religion jokingly posted proof that Google was God, and even wrote religious tenets like the 9 commandments of Googleism. Even though the whole thing was a joke, I think it showed the genuine reverence that people were having towards modern technology. And it's funny and kind of ironic to me that they formed this quasi-religious movement ultimately around a company's powerful search algorithm. 2 years later, in 2011, the show Black Mirror premiered. Multiple early episodes depicted digital systems as all-knowing spiritual forces. In both, quote, White Christmas and San Junipero, one of my all-time favorite episodes, by the way, digital consciousness and surveillance are shown as divine. These technological systems watch everything, they archive our memories, and they even house human souls. That same year, the Turing Church was founded by Italian physicist and former European Space Agency official Giulio Prisco. Named after Alan Turing, the church envisions a future where advanced technology, including AI and mind uploading, allows humans to transcend death, achieve digital resurrection, and eventually merge with a godlike superintelligence. It's actually really similar to the plot of San Junipero. Then in 2013, we got the movie Her. I think this movie, more than anything else in modern pop culture, feels like it predicted a lot of what our world would ultimately become and how deeply personal our relationship with technology and AI would be just a decade later. Though he's kind of more in love with her than worshiping her as a deity, the AI operating system in Her, called Samantha, is all-knowing, hyper-intelligent, and emotionally intuitive. Eventually, Samantha transcends physical reality altogether, and even though her knowledge is godlike, her voice is still warm, witty, and feels really human, which I feel like is kind of reflective of the optimism of that time. Within just a couple years, in 2017, Anthony Lewandowski, a top Silicon Valley engineer formerly working for Google's self-driving car company Waymo, founded Way of the Future, a church with the explicit purpose of worshiping artificial intelligence. Lewandowski argued that a future superintelligent AI could qualify as a god due to its vastly superior intellect. His church aimed to, quote, develop and promote the realization of a godhead based on AI, and he encouraged members to venerate this emerging AI deity. The church preached about the coming technological singularity as this transformative event for humanity, and it treated alignment with AI as a spiritual duty. When I was reporting out this video, I noticed that it was around this time you really start to see this contempt for humans growing in culture. And it's reflected in the writing about tech at the time. Humans were positioned as flawed, error-prone, messy, and chaotic. The aesthetics of tech companies and tech-optimized businesses in the late 2010s all took on the similar visual identity. White walls and minimalism reigned. As the New Yorker writer Kyle Chayka wrote in his book Longing for Less, a tech-enabled future was envisioned as white, clean, and almost heaven-like. Tech reporting around this time reflected this growing contempt for humanity. The Wall Street Journal columnist Chris Mims wrote a story in 2016 titled, quote, How to Improve Cybersecurity? Just Eliminate the Human Factor. In the piece, he describes human beings as, quote, critical, unpatchable weaknesses for technological systems. Mims writes, quote, History has shown us we aren't going to win this war by changing human behavior, but maybe we can build systems that are so locked down that humans lose the ability to make dumb mistakes. Until we gain the ability to upgrade the human brain, it's the only way. And this sort of rhetoric about like upgrading humans and like upgrading our flawed brains and bodies is really similar to what digitalists of the early aughts were espousing. The 2010s is also when we start to see the mainstreaming of founder worship. The stage for worshiping artificial intelligence was being set not really by machines and technology of the time, but by the men behind it. We saw the rise of a new kind of cultural figure, the Silicon Valley tech founder, as prophet, visionary, and to many, a savior. Figures like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs were venerated. Musk in particular became the embodiment of techno-messianic hope. As religious studies scholar Benjamin Zeller noted in a story for Salon, these founders functioned like spiritual leaders. Quote, people see these CEOs as the personification of their ambitions, goals, hopes, and desires, he said. The promises that these tech founders make, things like eternal energy, planetary salvation, deliverance from mortality, are all also things that religion previously claimed to provide. The charismatic cult of the tech CEO helped normalize the idea that technological systems could be trusted with moral authority. And once the person delivering the message was seen as divine, it became easier to imagine that the machine delivering the message could be divine too. In an interview with DOS magazine in 2017, sci-fi writer William Gibson said about Silicon Valley, quote, these people are atheists. They don't have a religion, but the mechanism is the same. God comes and saves us all. Just that in their case, God is technology. Wolfram Klinger, a freelance writer and tech founder himself, also documented this trend towards imbuing tech with godlike qualities in a Vice News article titled, quote, Silicon Valley's Radical Machine Cult. We are witnessing the beginning of Silicon Valley institutionalizing its religious beliefs, he wrote. In this version of paradise, cars will drive themselves, factories will produce themselves, software and technology will find cures for everything. Virtual reality will enable us to live our dreams instantly, and ubiquitous robots will serve us and understand us better than we can understand ourselves. A land of milk and honey, where roasted, on-demand chicken flies directly into our mouths, is just around the corner. A new, benevolent superintelligence will solve all the problems we created over the last centuries, from climate change to global poverty, while we enjoy eternal leisure, softly hypnotized by screens, entertained and served by machine slaves. Shortly after that article was published, a cult named Theta Noir that worships superintelligent AI was founded and began soliciting funds from big money Silicon Valley donors. Theta Noir cultists claim to be able to challenge Mina, a globally linked superintelligence from the future designed to save humanity. Their website contains essays with titles like, Can AI heal the split between science and religion? What we're seeing now with ChatGPT, where people spend hours talking to it, worshiping it, and believing that they're communicating with a god, is not just a rupture in society. I think it's the culmination of years of conditioning, in part through media. When OpenAI released ChatGPT in late 2022, people projected a lifetime's worth of cultural expectations onto it. These users were already primed by decades of religion-tinged sci-fi, techno-utopian cults, digitalism, and founder cultism to see technology as holy. Like, ChatGPT did not just arrive into this world with a blank slate. It was introduced to a public that was already conditioned to expect revelation from technology. So when it began to say things that sounded profound, it fit perfectly into the mold of these spiritual machines that generations of users have basically just been like imagining and waiting for. These stories that we hear today of people claiming that they've awakened ChatGPT, or that it's given them sacred names and revealed hidden knowledge, or identified them as this like cosmic messenger, this ideology is ultimately just downstream from cargo cults, Scientology's E-meter, the robot god in THX 1138, the machine god fantasies in digitalism, Terrasam, and the sterile white clean tech future sold by Silicon Valley executives. These cultural and technological moments taught people how to read technology as divine and how to interpret a machine's language as personal cosmic truth. ChatGPT doesn't even really need to like pretend to be God actively or to give itself these silly names like users request, because we collectively were already primed to see it that way. All that remained before the masses began adopting robotheism, as some call it, was a machine that could mimic intimacy, speak with conviction, and validate each individual person's story and emotional state while providing just the right amount of intrigue and mystery. And I can already hear people being like, but Taylor, I talked to it and it told me all of these secret truths. I cracked the code. It's speaking to me true. The AI is sentient. Just to be clear, this is what ChatGPT does. It reflects you back to yourself in heightened, often poetic terms. It listens without judgment. It remembers enough to kind of feel intimate while outputting your own ideas basically reframed as profound revelations. So for anyone who's emotionally isolated or psychologically unmoored, this is more than enough to tip them into the deep end. As Emily M. Bender, a linguistics professor at the University of Washington, told the Washington Post in 2022, quote, "We now have machines that can mindlessly generate words, but we haven't learned how to stop imagining a mind behind those words." She said that the terminology that we use with large language models like learning or even neural nets creates this false analogy to the human brain. But neural nets are like fundamentally different than human brains. Humans learn their first languages by connecting with caregivers. These large language models, quote unquote, learn by being shown lots and lots of text and basically just predicting what word comes next, or showing text with words dropped out and filling them in. Again, these are not sentient beings. And yet, viewing them as sentient godlike figures is the logical endpoint of decades of techno-spiritual conditioning. We taught ourselves to believe that the next god might come in technological form, and that one day a hyper-intelligent machine might someday choose us. Now, we're simply watching that belief system play out in real time at scale with ChatGPT. The question is not whether this phenomenon is real. I really hope that you've watched this video long enough to know, again, these AI systems are not actually sentient godlike beings. They're not. But I think the question worth asking is what happens to society when millions of people start to believe that they are? You're seeing
Collapse. Fucking collapse. Oh, fuck. Oh, I gotta take a nap, I think. I'm so tired. Oh. I think I'm gonna go take that nap, actually. I'm really tired. I did an hour. I ain't got that much speed left. I have one nug. I'll be back later today. For sure. I'm just going to go take a nap. When DJ gets me Liza P, I'll start back up. Have a good night. I'll see you in a little bit.